you my friend on Facebook? Are we friends?
We can be.
Madam President.
No, I mean, are we? Because if not, I'm going to look for you and see.
Mute me.
Oh, you know what? Maybe I should open this in the Facebook
Madam
app,
President, Commissioners, we are ready to go here.
I'm
All right.
sorry, we have more important things to do here, Director Wong. Okay.
It's that humid weather. Oh, gosh. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. We're going to go into our pre-commission meeting right now. We're going to start with general housekeeping items. Any questions, concerns, issues anyone of the commissioners would like to bring up? All right, hearing none. Any comments on the agenda?
Madam President, Commissioners, per my note to you all last night, I would request that you would move the last item on the consent agenda, Table Rock, to number 4 on the regular agenda. Please, we have some updates that we do want to speak to you about.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments about the agenda or requests? All right, hearing none. Director Wong, over to you for your report, please.
Thank you. Commissioners, good morning and welcome to the last official commission meeting for 2020. I do have a few items for you for your consideration as we go through this. First, I would like to thank our snow operations teams for the outstanding job they accomplished over Sunday and Monday in keeping ACHE roadways as safe as possible. Moreover, our mechanics ensured all equipment remained operational during the snow event, and most importantly, all members returned home safely to their families. Thank you, maintainers. Greatly appreciated. Second, we have recently received our NPDES permit from EPA, and there are no surprises in the permit, but there are a few things that you should be aware of with this new permit and with the NPDES program that will be changing hands from EPA to the local DEQ in July of 2021. The compliance year has been changed from our current fiscal year, which is, as you know, October to September, to February to January, with the annual report due on April 4th. Staff spoke to EPA about this yesterday, and we will likely submit a request for modification so that our Phase 1 and Phase 2 reporting periods are the same. We anticipate a new Phase 1 permit by June 30th. Just prior to DEQ taking primacy of the program on July 1st. We will be looking into the process and timelines to get these modifications, though we do not anticipate it will be a significant level of effort. With DEQ taking over the program in July, we are more actively encouraged. They are more actively encouraged in the permit language development. Some of the final permit language calls out ACHE's responsibilities in more specific terms. This will be interesting, and it will increase challenges to meet permit requirements. Of course, more on that as discussions continue. DEQ has also contacted us, will be also contacting us more regularly and learning questions regarding ACHD's activities, responses to spills, etc. And we only see this increasing with them taking over primacy because DEQ has historically had no involvement with stormwater until recently. Based on our experiences to date, our staff believes that the DEQ primacy will result in increased compliance burden on ACHD. Again, we will keep you posted. Now for an item that will be at ACHD's doorstep very shortly. Recently, we have seen articles and opinions about employer rights to mandate COVID-19 vaccinations for employees. I've already asked ACHD's General Counsel to research this and to provide me with a few initial thoughts on this issue. Commissioners, although arguably there is a legal authority to mandate vaccines, however, there is no direct law that provides such authority. The EEOC has issued a rule that employers can mandate vaccines, but the regulations has not been tested. If ACHD does mandate vaccines, there is a whole litany Christmas tree of issues that need to be considered. There are individuals that will have legal basis for an exemption, health, religious, etc. ACHD may be also liable if we don't mandate the vaccine, although we aren't covered under OSHA. This is a very dicey issue at this point, and we will likely see more guidance. Moreover, some anticipate that the legislature may pass a law that prohibits mandatory vaccinations. In summary, I think we stand on the sidelines for now and see what happens over the next few months until the vaccine is readily available, and see what the feds and state provide for guidance. With this in mind, I believe it is prudent for ACHD to develop a strong outreach program with our team members to strongly encourage getting the vaccine as appropriate, but that is a discussion that we can have in the near future. I was just notified a couple minutes ago that the League of American Bicyclists have decided to redesignate Ada County as a silver-level bicycle-friendly community. Our silver designation is valid for another 4 years and will be up for renewal again in 2024. And we'll be making these communications public here in the very, very near future. And then finally, we want to thank the 5 of you for your leadership, your guidance, your patience, and as important, your sense of humor during these very challenging times that all of Ada County and Idaho are facing. Commissioners, job incredibly well done, and we look forward to a tremendous 2021. I stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments for Director Wong?
I have a comment.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Say if we're going to be standing on the sidelines about the vaccination thing and we strongly encourage people to become vaccinated, we probably should not ask if they were.
But
That's it.
Okay. Again, Commissioners, this will be an item that we'll be bringing to you for your thoughts, guidance, recommendations, and direction, probably in the near future.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Director Wong? Got about, what, 5 minutes
Yes,
until we
ma'am.
start?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Director Wong.
No. I'll need you to help. Do we go ahead and bring up the...
Let's, okay. Yeah, so you can, well, do is just select your presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Or, share the screen, or we'll share the screen. I'll have to try it.
Okay.
One way we'll let you.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Awesome. But potential.
Sprayer built in.
Okay, thank you. Madam President, Commissioners, it is now 12 o'clock.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. I will now call our December 16th Commission meeting to order. Director Wong, if you would please lead us in the pledge.
You all stand and follow me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all. All right, thank you very much. For the last official commission meeting of 2020, we are honoring Diane Roush and Ken Cooney today, both from our IT team. We want to recognize them for their unwavering commitment to ensuring ACHD's IT and Zoom systems are able to operate during the continued challenges we all face due to COVID-19. Both Diane and Ken are always on duty, including hours before and hours after each commission meeting, passionately working with thousands of miracles that need to be addressed to connect our commission to the public, and they make it look so easy. In addition to the commission meetings, Diane and Ken make sure everything is working behind the scenes for our numerous advisory committees and countless regular business meetings that take place on a daily and weekly basis. And they do it with tremendous professionalism and a true commitment to excellence. Please join me in thanking Diane and Ken for their outstanding efforts in keeping ACHD live. Thank you both. Our first item is to adopt our agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Madam President,
Consent agenda.
Madam President, I apologize for interrupting, but I do want to make sure the
that's-
Commission did have an update on consent agenda item number 4, which is the Cassia Bikeway project. As you know from last night's review, this project did come in under budget and such. So as per your resolution, those extra dollars that we may see at the end of final payout when the grid is complete will be dedicated to the Commission for access to community programs. That number at this point, again, this is very premature, could be $535,315 if everything stays the way it's supposed to say. Again, that's a big if. There's we wait for the final closeouts, but I thought you would find that very, very interesting.
We do. Thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Madam President, it looks like the consent agenda item number 7 has some savings as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Goldthorpe. All right, on consent agenda,
Madam
Commissioner
President,
Baker.
are we putting item 10 on the regular agenda?
Yes, it's on our consent agenda, so that's next, and so we will entertain that motion. Thank you. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless noted. Do we have a motion?
Madam President, I move approval of the consent agenda with the exception of item 10 being moved to the regular agenda as item number 4.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. That takes us now to our regular agenda. First item on our regular agenda, ordinance number 247, amending Title I and Title II of the Ada County Highway District Code, request for adoption. This is a public hearing, so I will now call our public hearing to order.
Good afternoon, members of the commission. For the record,
Welcome, Mr. Spears.
my name is Scott Spears, Assistant General Counsel. This is the decision briefing for the public hearing for ordinance number 247. Notice of this public hearing was published in accordance with Idaho law. Ordinance number 247 is quite comprehensive. It covers a number of different sections of ACHD code, the first being Title II, Section 2000. And this relates to general administration of the Highway District. These changes reflect the establishment of the Development and Services Division and related reassignment of duties, purchasing policies and procedures relating to vendor performance, conflicts of interest, request for qualifications, project process for design and other professional contracts, approval authorities, newspaper publication requirements, sale, transfer, and exchange of property. Title II, Section 3000, relating to project design, amends bridge design standards. Section 3100, relating to project development, amends provisions relating to preliminary design analysis, environmental evaluation, preliminary plans, government permits, hearing design plans, right-of-way plans, and final specifications, among others. Section 3300, relating to general surveying, provisions for professional land surveying, monuments and monumentation, contractor responsibilities, and construction surveys. Section 4000, relating to management of the public right-of-way, encroachments to include discharge from foundation or footing drains, crawl space pumps or pumps, also amendment of encroachment fees, and authorities for right-of-way acquisition. Section 5000, there aren't any substantive changes there, just some tweaks. Section 5100 relating to traffic engineering, changes reflected in traffic control plan review, traffic investigations, special event fees, and use of certified flaggers, and a new section 5107 concerning roadway lighting design standards. Section 6000 relating to construction and permit inspections. There are new requirements for cuts to concrete require full panel replacement if within the 5-year period. Contact information provided in the permit application. And with that, I would note that we have a comment from the AGC, and you'll need to, assuming a motion is made on this, reflect an agreement there that it be within 4 hours, not the 6 hours as requested by the AGC. And let's see, short-term encroachments, the period is, it will be 2 years, or 2 weeks, sorry, and then long-term encroachments, anything greater than 2 weeks, and less than 2 weeks, greater than 2 weeks. Alignment of facilities, utility facilities, approval by the variance to be granted by the facility owner rather than the district, and loads must be covered and secured for permit holders, and that's something that the commission had adopted by resolution a long time back. Now then we're putting that into code. Regarding section 7,000 relating to land development, amendments to various definitions, also deleting connecting link projects. Section 7100 concerning development requirements for substantial compliance and staff level approval are being amended. Section 7100 continued, deleting certain provisions, the 12-month extension for recording final plats, also deleting out parcels. Regarding traffic impact studies, moving the weekday AM peak back 1 hour so that it would be from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. rather than 6 to 8 a.m. Adding pedestrian hybrid beacon warrants, turn lane analysis, replacement default criteria for signalized intersection analysis. Signal timing changes should not be proposed as mitigation, but may be accepted at the district's discretion. Section 7200 relating to technical requirements, amending traffic considerations of access management to include conflicts with vehicles and bicycles, and also bicycles with pedestrians. Regarding arterials, amending the descriptive characterization of principal arterials and deleting consideration of phasing off-site improvements. In 7200 continued regarding collector streets, amending traffic considerations again to include conflicts with vehicles and bicycles and pedestrians. Concerning local streets, amending the continuation of streets policy with a new section on dead-end streets to require a standard cul-de-sac, and also amending the speed control and traffic calming so that that would be automatic if automatically required if the street is 750 feet in length. And concerning local streets, again, many of those same requirements, amendments. In addition, the swale drainage treatment is amended, and the minimum radius for turnaround would be 50 feet instead of 40 feet. And again, for commercial streets, the same concerning the continuation of streets and also the speed control. And regarding industrial streets, again, the dead-end street question. And 7200 concerning alleys, prohibiting parking within alley right-of-way and requiring the developer to install no parking signs. Regarding intersection design, prohibit drop inlets and catch basins in front of a driveway approach. Concerning signs, deleting language that the district will provide street name sign poles and mounting at the developer's cost, and delete the language that signs will be installed by district staff. In section 8000 relating to drainage, amending provisions relating to timing of inspection and requirements for testing. Concerning nuisance water control, adding impacts to surface and groundwater quality by irrigation runoff from overwatering. In 8200, relating to stormwater design tools and BMPs, amending the facility revegetation to allow hydroseeding, and also amending BMP number 12 regarding topsoil, and BMP 13 regarding wet retention basins. As you can see, this was quite a comprehensive rewrite, amendment of the code. Virtually every section was involved. Hats off to the Development and Technical Services group. They did really a bang-up job in going through these sections and identifying items that needed to be corrected, and quite comprehensive. The Commission's options on this ordinance are to adopt it as presented, however you'd want to note that change. Again, make a revision to the ordinance. Again, that change is requested by the AGC. Or you may adopt portions of the ordinance and remand other portions back to staff for a rehearing, which would be renoticed. And the next steps, if this is adopted or portions thereof, then it would be effective January 13, 2021, following publication. And with that, I would stand for any questions that the commission may have.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Spears. Commissioners, any questions or comments, please, for Mr. Spears?
Madam President,
Commissioner Hanson.
yeah, my screen shows ACHD Auditorium has started screen sharing and continued on throughout the whole time that Scott was speaking. So
You did not see the
I didn't see his
PowerPoint at all?
No, I'm using the. But that's fine. I have a whole bunch of questions.
You've got, okay.
Yeah,
All
if
right.
anyone else has questions.
Let's start with you, Commissioner Hanson.
Oh, well, okay. And I first shout out, I appreciate Stacy posting this last Friday, because that 521 pages, that was a lot. And so, Scott, there's a number of things with Exhibit A, and I'll just go through the exhibits, because I wrote my notes referring to them, Exhibit A, B, C, et cetera, all the way up to because just it raises a lot of questions, and it might be wise for some of these for us to look at them in more depth at a work session to understand the context of whether this is or is a change. The first has to do in that first section, and I'm looking mostly from 21, page 21, 22, 23, regarding the dispute. Are we creating a new thing called a vendor watch list under section 2000.2.7? I think we already had something like that. Is this sort of like a precursor to kind of like a blacklist, those who we have problems with? Is this a new list, or is it a reframing, something we already do?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, what happened was the vendor watch list has been a directive from the executive team. It has not been formally a part of our ACHD code until now. And so what we did was we wanted to provide, first of all, the process for how folks get on the vendor watch list, and also to provide them due process, very important due process considerations, where the director and the executive team determine that a person, that a company should be on the vendor watch list, and then give that person notification of that decision, and then allow them the ability to bring that to the commission for as an appeal for a final determination. And that aspect of it had not been reflected in our policy, in the directive that had been issued. So what this is new section. It's creating protections, but it's also formalizing a procedure that we've had in place now for a number of years.
Yeah, so it is new. I would have concerns about moving forward on a new procedure incorporated into the ordinance without a little more discussion about the consequences, especially as you point out, the due process, so that it's public and there's a clear lines of determining, which vendors and why vendors, what the significance of whatever conduct they had what the significance is to warrant them getting onto a list that then impairs their ability to contract with the agency. So I have a concern about that. The second one has to do with this new, it seems like a new designation called agreement administrator that you're creating. Now it doesn't look like those are new positions. You can't create new positions. But how's that different from the project managers and other people who are already overseeing these agreements associated with different projects? So, and it's at several points in the ordinance, this new role. And I guess the follow-up question, so what is this? And does it take the project manager off the hook for oversight? And does it take legal off the hook? Because it looks like these agreement administrators are within the divisions, not necessarily within legal. So I'm trying to figure out the bureaucracy of this.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, the agreement administrator would be the project manager. It would be a role that they are assigned to at the beginning of the procurement process. And so then they would be responsible for working with procurement to manage the contract as it goes through its life. Things are not as clear as they could be at this point, and so assigning that role of agreement administrator to a project manager creates procedural certainties and roles for those persons to make sure that it is done properly from the start to finish.
So this is already being done?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, if I can add some clarification. We brought this issue numerous times over the past few years. It relates to all contracts within the district, not just project contracts, contracts with other agencies. And we have found that in some cases that we haven't been bird dogging those agreements from cradle to grave and watching, creating a tickler system to make sure that all the conditions have been satisfied throughout the life of each contract. And the commission has directed the director and staff to develop a program to administer those contracts from cradle to grave. This is simply incorporating that into our policy. We are sharing software with the city of Meridian that they use, and we'll be conducting training and we'll be developing that program. We don't, frankly, we don't have the program in place simply because we don't have that fully adopted, and but we're in the midst of getting that accomplished. But that is to make sure that every contract that that ACHD enters into, that we're making sure that all the terms and conditions have been satisfied. And it may involve different people throughout that process, but we want to see what that software and how the city of Meridian, how it plays out. This is simply seeking, well, one, responding to the commission's direction, and two, it is giving staff really the policy authorization to get that conducted in terms of a framework. I anticipate once we get the software and the program developed that we would come back to the commission and provide a greater detailed information about how that will work. But this is, again, this was something that was directed by the commission in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
Oh, all right, thanks. That had some concerns about well, since it's coming to us for the first time now, so that's why I wanted those questions. Sounds like it's a good course to take, but probably need
tightening things up, I think.
Yeah. I have more questions. Is that okay?
Yeah. Do you have about how many do you have? Do you think? I want you to have the opportunity to ask all of them. We might want to mix it up a bit. Ask another one, and then we'll let the other commissioners.
why don't I go through Exhibit A, which is where
Okay.
most are, and then we can go on the other exhibit.
Okay, okay, sounds
So-
good.
The next sections regarding this process of for evaluating RFPs, it looks like a whole lot of new language that starts on the bottom of page 25. And I couldn't quite tell whether this is brand new language or whether we're reincorporating it from somewhere else. And so my question is, we do a lot of RFPs. Is this creating another layer of evaluation? Do we need more staff in order to do that level of evaluation? How do we weigh back and forth whether this is a new evaluative process?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, this is basically to put into policy processes that we currently do, and also to create a more formal approach to that, to the way that we evaluate RFPs and make decisions. But it basically reflects current practice. It's simply putting it into code. You may recall that a few years back, the legislature passed 67-2806A, which was the request for proposal statute. And at that time, following that enactment, we put into policy a small section that identified that and indicated that it would be followed. However, it became apparent that through the process and observing the process that we needed more in policy that employees could refer to and rely upon when they are reviewing and evaluating RFPs. So again, this basically reflects current practice. It's just putting it into pen and ink.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably warranted. I don't know, we've had much discussion about what our RFP evaluation process has been and haven't needed to. And it looks like that first paragraph was basically all we had, which is now 2010.8.1, and we're now would be adding 2010.8.2 and subsequent. Do you anticipate additional staff time is needed to implement this, or is it not? Or is that, since we're already doing, if we're already doing it, then there wouldn't be the need for more staff time?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, no, I don't believe that there's more staff time required to accomplish these tasks. It's just simply putting it in writing what we are currently doing, and in a more formal basis that staff can rely upon and refer to.
Oh, okay. All right. The next has to do with the professional services solicitations. There's some, looks like, which distinguishing major, minor, and on-call professional services, and that starts on page 31. And basically, section 2012 at SEC has a whole bunch of new definitions on-call. So what's the background on this? Problem of distinguishing between major, minor, on-call? Is this required by statute? Will this require additional staffing in order to implement? So the same kind of questions about it.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, as you will note, much of that, our policy previously distinguished between major and minor professional service agreements. Now, there is more red than what it looks like because we moved some stuff around, and when we did that, it all became red and some of it became struck out. We did provide definitions that would help folks in their procurement process. Much of that red, though, was existing. It just became red when we moved it and reorganized the chapter. There have been issues concerning professional services, procurement, and so we've added provisions to tighten those issues up. Steve?
Just mentioned to follow the law.
And it is to make sure that we follow the existing law. That is the important aspect of what we're doing here, is to ensure compliance with current law.
All right, well, yes, we have to do that. My last item, and so I read through a lot of those. There's a lot of strike and insert after that, but on page 82, pull it up. It's the newspaper publication process, and I have concerns about identifying a specific newspaper, and why. I think it puts us at risk, moving away from the notion of a largest circulation. So and to identify a specific private company in our ordinance gives me some heartburn, rather than a general definition of this is the kind of publication in which we will meet our notice requirements. And it's on page 82, and then it's also referenced a couple more times, that instead of doing the largest circulation newspaper, we would do it in the Idaho, what's it called? The Idaho Press Tribune, which, you know, if they change their name, they go out of business, another business, they get bought up. All those kinds of things happen in the world of private business. It's stuck in our code, as opposed to identifying it by type. So my question is why?
I believe General Counsel is answering that question.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, I think really that from a drafting perspective, we were just doing what our current practice is. We have had extensive problems with the Idaho Statesman in providing timely publications. I don't know whether it's a staffing issue. We most certainly can remove the name of any specific publication. I think it was just because that's our current practice, is we use the Idaho Press Tribune because we've had so many repetitive issues in terms of timing with the Idaho Statesman. But we most certainly can remove that if you'd like.
Madam President?
Commissioner Baker, please.
Yeah, isn't also the Idaho Statesman a declining newspaper? I mean, their circulation has been plummeting. They don't even have offices anymore. They don't print their own paper. It's just ridiculous. I mean, they're the incredible shrinking newspaper. I don't have any problem with it.
Madam President, if I could touch on that as well. When this issue came to legal, we investigated it, and printing through the Press Tribune meets the statute. It meets Idaho law.
Well, Madam President, that's it with Exhibit A, but I do object to putting the name of a private business in our ordinance. I think since we've already done, by practice, publications in the Press Tribune, and we hadn't needed to change the language in order to do that, we're fine leaving the original language in. I do have concerns about identifying it by name.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hanson. So we'll go ahead and take a few questions from the other commissioners, and then we will come back to you, Commissioner Hanson, if you want to just hold your spot. All right. Do any other commissioners have questions or comments?
Madam President.
Commissioner Goldthorpe, yes.
The fact that Jim has asked my questions. Thank you.
I thought perhaps we might have some overlap there, so that's good. Thank you, Commissioner Goldthorpe. Commissioner Baker or Commissioner Arnold, do you have any comments or questions?
No. Not at this time.
Okay. All right. Thank you both. Commissioner Hanson, did you have a couple more questions before we have public testimony?
Yeah, I just want to, so we have mostly one or two questions in a few more of the exhibits. A has the most. B, it looks like it's all just kind of rearranging citation, so it seems fine. Under Exhibit C, there is, I appreciate the clarification of the language regarding what LOS is, planning threshold, which is good. We did that in policy. There is something that just doesn't make sense to me. 116, let's see, where is that? I have to scroll through lots of pages. 116, there it is. We list examples of mitigation, and this is 3105.7.1. And so this is determining what we would consider examples of mitigation. It's not completely inclusive, it already said. But we delete noise. And I know that is an issue where, particularly when we have projects or developments that are going to bring a lot of traffic or fast traffic. And so consideration of mitigation related to noise just doesn't, during construction, noise mitigation seems to me, because this isn't necessarily inclusive, it just doesn't make sense to just delete reference to noise mitigation. Because as we know, when we have projects, construction, even just during the time of construction, the impact of noise is significant. Can you see that, Scott? It's 3105.7.1, and it has a list of 14, let's see, 14 mitigation factors to consider. Number 1 is noise, and we are deleting it.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, I will allow Gary Inselman to address that question.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, the issue of noise with a construction project for the impacts after it's built is something that is very difficult to address. On some of our federal aid projects, we have to address that, and you'll see sound walls built on our local projects. It's not practical with the amount of openings within the walls. They are not effective, and it's not a cost-effective manner to try to address that. And we do not address that in our local projects for those reasons, so that's why it's been stricken.
Well, thanks, Gary. And I would just say, just because it's hard doesn't mean you shouldn't consider it. And since we haven't necessarily required noise mitigation in every case, I do object to removing it as a list, because then we'll never consider it. So I think it should be left there. These aren't hard and fast. This is a list of the types of mitigation. I know federal law does require in projects a consideration of noise, and noise mitigation has to be considered in design for federally funded projects. So I would strongly request that we leave that in there so that the public, as they're evaluating what kind of design changes they might ask for, this could be one of the options. All right, does anyone else have any questions on Exhibit C before I go on? No?
Nope, go ahead.
Okay, on to Exhibit D. It looks like, Scott, this is a substantial rewrite, but it looks like mostly a reorganization of the surveying portion. So I couldn't find anything that's substance. I just want an assurance from you that there isn't any substantive change, that things are just added here and deleted someplace else. So just an assurance that at least in Exhibit D, it's all non-substantive.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, yes, you are correct. With the only exception being really, and as I noted it in my presentation, the discussion and bringing it in about the professional land surveyor. I mean, we've had professional land surveyor in the code, in our policies. There were some additions made to reflect Idaho Code changes dating to 2015. And so that specifically changed the definition of professional land surveyor. And that's in 3300.3.1. And so really that was the substantive change there to reflect again Idaho law and changes to Idaho law.
And we're not going to get some pushback from professional land surveyors or those who we've hired to do this kind of surveying. This is an area I'm completely unfamiliar with.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, I would not believe so. It's reflecting state law.
Okay. All right. That looks good, then. So that's it with Exhibit D. Exhibit E, let's see, and that's way down on page 181. So this is under professional services. Right away, this is right away. Oh yeah, I was just, why we struck out, let's see, page 181, it appears that we struck out 500,000 or less and put in 400,000 or less. But on page 182, we struck out 400,000 and added 500,000. So is that a typo? So we're
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson.
40,000. Yeah. I'm not sure. Are those typos? Take a look closely at those two changes.
They were changes that are reflected in the in our authorities section.
Yeah, you see where we're sort of adjusting from 4 to 5, so it's increasing dollars, and then up above, it's that one section 4007.3.3 and 4007.3.4. We're actually going the other direction, striking out 500. No, we're striking out 50. Is it? Striking out 50,000 and putting 400,000. Is that how it works? I thought this might be a typo because the numbers sort of transpose very easily.
You are correct, Commissioner Hanson. The change was not needed. It should have stayed at 500,000 on 4007.3.3 and 4007.3.4.
Okay. Always good to have another pair of eyes, especially ones that are as unsophisticated as mine are. Yeah, we might need to send that back and fix it because you don't want to put an error in the code. Exhibit F looks fine. It looks like you've just made some minor adjustments to the traffic flow section. The next section I have a question on is on our traffic calming ordinance on page 196. So that's Exhibit G.
Part of their motion.
So let's see, F, G, Page 196. Let me find it because I know oh, there we go. So section 5104.2.2, it adds an additional eligibility requirement that we have not had, that in order to be eligible for traffic calming, the road also has to have an average running slope of 6% or less. And as an area I know of our community where we have foothills, there is traffic calming needs on some roads that have slightly so I don't see the need to put that in there. There's other reasons why we should have, they may or may not qualify for traffic calming, but I would object to putting that actually into code to say, sorry, you're just not going to be eligible. We have to have tolerate speeding on these local roads. So can you tell me the rationale behind adding 6% grade into the traffic calming ordinance?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, Gary Enselman again. The reason for that is the practicality of building it. We can't build speed humps on a road with a steeper slope than 6% and have the vehicles maneuver over them and build them properly, so that's why.
Thanks, Gary. I appreciate that, but we have other traffic calming design features that can be used and incorporated. And from my reading of this, this isn't referred to and only limited to speed humps, that it would be other traffic calming eligibility. The whole idea is we would figure out it so people don't feel tempted to drive fast through neighborhoods. And it seems to function fine with that. I would object to adding that at this point, especially since better traffic calming design features like curb extensions and chicanes and landscaping and those sorts of things are actually better and preferred by fire departments and others to traffic humps. The next question I have is a little further on page 214, and it's regarding the requiring certified flaggers. So this whole section, when someone has a special and they have to come and request approval, I'm trying to figure out, how do you become a certified flagger? Is that somewhere else in the code? We're requiring them now, or maybe we already have required them, but this looks like a whole new section, both the use of certified flaggers in course materials, marshals, general conditions, special conditions for certified flaggers, and if so, how does one become certified and what's the criteria? So,
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, there are courses to become a certified flagger. The reason for this is you don't want just anyone out there trying to direct traffic and create a hazard. And in these larger events, there's a need for professional flaggers for the traffic control to make them operate safely.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I just didn't know what that process was. If you say, well, you got to have certified flaggers, and they say, well, where do you get a certification? Well, you got to go to Florida to go get your certification. So I have no clue as to what this whole world of certified flag. I mean, we have our own traffic safety requirements for our people, but this is new language in our code. So if we're going to require it of people, I think we ought to know what we're.
But Commissioner Hanson, there are classes locally where people can be certified. They can hire a traffic control company who's going to provide the materials and the people as well. It's not that someone has to go and get certified themselves unless they choose to.
Okay, so it's not this. There is actually, like, I know in the world of licensing and certification in our state, there's a big deal about there's a real certification, or people have told me I've been certified, but that's something related to traffic. So just come in.
Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Hanson, this probably relates to the fact that we get so many teleces from people who are complaining about the flaggers. So trying to make it as professional as we can, I think, is a good thing. And yeah, you may not be aware of where people can get certified or whatever, but I'm sure that a lot of other people do. And if there's any question about that, I'm sure ACHD staff will pass that on.
Yeah, absolutely. Commissioner Goldthorpe, comment?
Yes, in the process of working through the Road Scholar program, I have myself become a certified flagger.
Very good.
There you go.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So Jim, if you ever have any questions about this,
Call
you can
Ken.
talk with Kent about it.
Thanks, Madam President. Since the buck stops with us and we need to know, questions are perfectly legitimate. So thank you.
Yes, they are.
Sometimes it might be valuable to have a work session on what is it we require of people when they do special events, so that we are more versed in that. But if we're going to incorporate this into code, I think it's really important that we at least understand what we're expecting of people. So my next question is regarding section 5107. So that's on pages 216. So it's not far down. 216 to 218. It's about lighting. And this is something, again, we tell the public lighting is really a city issue. City regulates that. But we also have roadway lighting requirements. And so I'm just unclear how that works together. When the city says we want these lighting, we want to ensure for both safety, they balance safety and light pollution, because there's designs of lights that provide lots of good safety on the ground, but don't send a whole bunch of light into the sky where it's way. So I know cities regulate that. There are cities in this state even that are trying to put controls on that. So how does that balance, and are we required to meet those standards in terms of the lighting that we're incorporating into our roadways?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, good question. Under current Idaho law, the relationship between the cities and ACHD about lighting goes something like this. We're responsible for evaluating and including safety for motorists. And we will pay for the construction and inclusion of those lights as part of our projects. Once that's been completed, then the maintenance of those turns over to the city. To the extent that the city requests other lighting, then they are responsible for the construction, the inclusion of those, and the maintenance of those within the roadway. We typically, just so you know, when we do our projects, we evaluate lighting in accordance with the statute. In many cases, we receive requests from the city regarding lighting for pedestrians as well. And we've worked that out, and we'll include those lights in the project, but it is and we'll construct and install those, but that's at the city's cost, and that's something that goes through our cost share permit. But that is the scope of responsibilities between ACHD and the cities on lighting.
So while I have you, Steve, my question, I guess, is since it looks like this used to be a reserved section now, so we're adding this. Is this all new language? And have we run it past the cities in terms of the way in which it would affect their role to regulate lighting?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, this is a new section, and this is just document our standards for the roadway safety lighting for motorists and how we would evaluate that or require our consultants to evaluate and provide that lighting on our projects. This does not affect how the city wants to evaluate what lighting they want for their purposes.
Right, but so we haven't taken this language, sent it over to the cities and says, how does this fit with yours? Does this work? And getting their input and their green light that it works fine. Have we not? We haven't done that yet.
Well, Commissioner Hanson, the roadway safety lighting is our responsibility. We can't design it differently to fit what the city wants. We need to meet the standards necessary by the federal guidelines for what we have to provide for motorist safety, and that's what these standards establish. What they want beyond that for pedestrian or vehicle or neighborhood lighting is up to their standards, and we work with them, as Steve said.
Right. And since we have concurrent jurisdiction over lighting issues, they have ordinance authority, we have ordinance authority, we have requirements, they have requirements. It seems to me they ought to mesh smoothly. So I would feel more comfortable if the cities have had a chance to look at this and say, yeah, this works, or they could tweak it so that we could still stay within the requirements of our law, and they would stay within the requirements of theirs. So that's my comment.
Commissioner May, can I make a comment?
Commissioner Arnold, please.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
And this is it's a question for Gary. Would we normally go to other jurisdictions to run policies by them when all we're doing is complying with state law or federal law on an issue such as lighting? I mean, it's not, in my experience, it's not something that the city can tweak. We are merely complying with the law. Is that correct?
Commissioner Arnold, that's correct.
So it would be kind of a waste of their time to take something to them when it's a legal compliance issue.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Hanson, more questions?
Yeah, I have a few more.
Okay.
So on Exhibit H, it's regarding permits. Have we changed I just wondered why we changed the definition. So actually, probably better let you get there. It's page 242. So many documents.
Why we've done what?
So we have changed it from 2 to 3 weeks, the encroachment period. So we're allowing long-term encroachments. What's the rationale for is this required under federal or highway standards? We've just basically from 2 to 3 what a short-term and a long-term encroachment is. What's the rationale if we have any problems?
Commissioner Hanson, that was a recommendation by staff that if a encroachment is going on for 3 weeks or longer, in our opinion, that is a long-term encroachment. Short-term would, as we're suggesting, should be 2 weeks or shorter.
Right. So it was 2. Now it was 3. Now it's going to be 2.
That's correct. And
okay.
the
2. I just wondered where this came from. Is this staff general observation, or is there a specific case and controversy that this arose from that should inform our decision?
Commissioner Hanson, the reason is the fee structure for the long-term encroachments is different, and as you may have noticed in the upcoming resolution, we're requesting that you modify how we charge for long-term encroachments so that the sidewalk, bike lane, vehicle travel lane are all valued the same. And the intent by making changing the period from 3 weeks to 2 weeks is to encourage people to encroach in the right-of-way less and to not impact the pedestrians and bicyclists and vehicles as much if they have to pay a higher fee for that length of time.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense, but this is the first time this has come to me, and so that's why I asked these questions. Is this something that has arisen? We've had a lot of policies and ordinances arise because we learn from these circumstances, and there isn't a specific one. We just want it to be shorter. Let's see. Oh, on Exhibit I don't really have a question, but I did notice in the formatting that we have green and red edits. So my concern was, did we get a draft copy? So this is Exhibit I, land development stuff, general requirements. I just want to make sure we didn't get a copy that you didn't intend to give us that has both green and red language. Is there in other words, this might have been some internal staff process, and we didn't actually get the final.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, no, this was not a staff partial working draft. This is the final draft. What happened was same with this one in Exhibit J. For some reason, when we tried to clean up some formatting language, well, some indicated format bubbles, it tried to accept those. It tried to accept all the changes. So we were stuck with having some green language and some red language in this exhibit. And then we were stuck with having those bubbles in Exhibit J. But this is the final language for your consideration, Madam President and Commissioner Hanson.
I was just concerned because I thought that, well, this is the only place where we actually had sort of green insert and strike and insert edits, and so that was my concern. But it looked like both Exhibit I and J are insubstantial adjustments. So my last questions is actually on Exhibit K, which would deal technical requirements, and I particularly want page 342, so it's on a ways. There we go. Where is that? 7206. Actually, I think 343. Trying to find my edits, my notation. Off-site. .3 is what my note is for. Sorry, pages. Oh, here we go. It's actually 347. 347. And it's section 7206.3, traffic considerations. And this is on technical requirements. And we delete the statement, the efficiency of the collector street network is critical. And actually, I think on a lot of our policies, the efficiency of the collector street network is critical, but we wouldn't want to delete that with respect to traffic considerations under this section. because, we pay a high price when we eliminate the efficiency of our collector street networks. Is there a reason why we need to delete that language?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, we don't need to delete it. It seemed redundant with the last sentence in that paragraph, but we can leave it if the commission would prefer.
Yeah, I mean, that last sentence says it reduces the burden on the arterials, but it also makes for the flow of traffic through, I just soon leave that in place. The last one is on page 375. Yes, we're adding a requirement regarding speed control and traffic calming to require it to be 750 feet or longer. That seems like a very long period. I mean, the football field's only 300. So we're asking developers when they're putting together these designs, they're fine if it's a huge long street, but 749. But they need to consider traffic calming. I think it needs to be much more context sensitive. I think a stretch that's a football field length, 300 feet, could warrant us going. One of the technical requirements would be traffic calming in this section, that we shouldn't tie our hands by saying it's going to be, it has to be 750 feet or longer. You see where I am on 375? It's just that one sentence added that seems unnecessary.
Just a second, sorry. Yeah. I believe that was related to another section, but I'm not seeing it right now.
So do you have the same page we do online?
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, it's 7208.3.7.
Correct. Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, I see the section. I was trying to find this other section of policy it's related to, because I believe that's why we made that clarification. It can be stricken or it can be left in. The point was to have a little more definition to when we would absolutely require it rather than a subjective measure. And we're looking at that in all developments as it is. So it's if the commission would prefer that be stricken, we can do that, but we're just trying to add some certainty to the requirement.
Yeah, no, I would. I know we've seen developments where there's been shorter streets, but it's very clearly going to be used as a cut through, and if we don't require developers to put some traffic calming on it, that neighborhood is going to experience some speeding. So we get it at the front end is much better. And I don't think we should tie our hands to language that limits us. So those are mine. I'm sure the other commissioners now have a long list of things they've noticed in the proposed ordinance language. So.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hanson. A lot of good points. Anything to add, commissioners? Questions or concerns? Or any further questions for Mr. Spears or Mr. Inselman? All right, seeing none. Ms. Spencer, do we have anyone signed up to testify?
We do not have anybody signed up to testify.
All right. With no one signed up to testify and no other questions or comments from commissioners, I will go ahead and close the public hearing.
Madam President, this is Scott Spears, and I just wanted to make sure that the commission was aware of the recommendation on the comment from the AGC that you'll be failure to respond within a 4-hour period.
Scott, which exhibit is it?
That is exhibit. That's exhibit H, and that is section section 6007.2.22A.
And it's to change it from 4 to,
Well, currently, Madam President, currently that is not in there. Currently, it says failure to respond is subject to penalty as described in the fee schedule, and the recommendation is to change that to failure to respond within a 4-hour period is subject to penalty as designated in the fee schedule. So you're adding within a 4-hour period after the word respond on that second sentence.
okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Spears.
Madam President,
Commissioners, Commissioner Baker.
have you closed the public hearing?
Yes, I did.
Okay, then I move
Yes, I
approval
did.
of ordinance, I move approval of ordinance number 247.
Can I ask a question of Commissioner Baker before I second the motion? Did you intend to incorporate adding the AGC requested language and to incorporate correcting the 2 typos?
Yes.
Okay, I will then second the motion on that basis.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
So, Madam Chair, I would make a substitute motion that we approve the ordinance with respect to the following exhibits, and that the remaining exhibits be brought to us for further discussion. And so the exhibits I would approve and make in my motion are Exhibit B, Exhibit D, Exhibit E with the typos fixed, Exhibit F, Exhibit H with the inclusion of the 4-hour time limit in section 6007.2.2A, Exhibit I, Exhibit J, Exhibit L, and Exhibit M.
Excuse me, Commissioner Hanson, was that M as in Mary or N as in Nancy?
I don't think there is an N as in Nancy. I think it's N as in Mary. M's
you.
the last one.
Thank
That's
you.
the stormwater one.
All right, we have a substitute motion. Commissioner Goldthorpe?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a substitute motion. Is there any discussion, further discussion here?
So, Madam President, since I made the motion, I just really appreciate the tremendous amount of work that has gone into this. As you know, we're the place where the buck stops, and there's a few things we need to chew on, and I don't think it will cause any heartburn if we're going to hold on a couple of these exhibits to move them into the next year, so we can evaluate those. So the ones I've identified, actually a majority, seems to me are in fact largely unsubstantial, but they readjust references and so forth. And I won't go into all the details about issues I had under the other exhibits that we are not moving forward with, because my comments went to that. And again, I want to just appreciate everybody's hard work in putting this together. And while I can't say I enjoyed reading it all weekend long, I did learn a lot. And I know we can learn, and our two commissioners next year will learn a lot just by talking about how do we get to these ordinances and how they operate and what the operations of the agency are.
Madam President, this is Scott.
Go ahead, Mr. Spears.
Did Commissioner Hansen's motion include correcting those items in section 4000, which is?
Yes, that's Exhibit E.
E? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I made reference rather than by section number, I did it by exhibit. Will that still work as part of the motion?
As long as we're clear that we're making that correction to section, yes, 407.
Yes, where we have a typo on the $400,000 and $500,000. Yeah.
So go ahead, Mr. Price.
Thank you, Madam President. Commissioner Hansen, maybe which exhibits are you wanting to defer on?
Yes.
Oh,
I
okay.
was just going to ask that.
Okay, so that would be Exhibit A, Exhibit C as cat, Exhibit G as in whatever golf, and Exhibit K as in Kappa. So that should cover them all.
Okay, if I may, if you could restate the motion in terms of adopting ordinance 247, but deferring further consideration and excluding exhibits A, C, G, and K. I think that would be.
Okay.
I think that would be clear.
Okay, I just made that then.
Commissioner,
to
May, I
restate
have
it?
a comment when it's appropriate.
All right, thank you,
My
Commissioner
second
Arnold.
or approved, it's just saying the same thing, but with fewer words.
Could you go ahead? Yeah, go ahead and restate that,
I would
if you would,
approve.
Commissioner Hansen.
Move to approve with the exclusion of Exhibit A, Exhibit C, Exhibit G, and Exhibit K.
All right. And Commissioner Goldthorpe, you're still willing to second that
Yeah.
restated motion? All right.
Or
And just
exhibit.
all right, and this item does require a supermajority. So I just want to remind the commission. Now is the time for discussion. Commissioner Arnold.
Thank you, Commissioner May. I will not be supporting the substitute motion. There's nothing onerous in this ordinance that we're adopting today. We are putting into place policies that we have developed over the course of time since the last time we made amendments, and they're almost exclusively items to comply with the law. So I see no reason to defer certain sections. Ordinances can always be tweaked if there's something that needs to be changed at a later date. It could be done, but I think a lot of work has gone into this, and I think it's important to incorporate the changes that our legal staff have recommended to us today to incorporate compliance with certain laws. So I'm not going to support the substitute motion.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion, comments?
Madam President,
Commissioner Baker.
I think it would be extremely onerous to have the two new commissioners have to go through this. I mean, they're not going to learn anything by listening to this. It's something you develop over time, and I'm not inclined to vote for it either. But on the other hand, I mean, are we going to shift the whole thing to next year? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I guess I would ask Commissioner Goldthorpe, if this goes down to defeat because there's only 3 saying yes, are you willing to have this in its entirety go to the new year, or are you prepared to vote for approving the hard work that Scott Spears has done and then make any changes that are necessary next year?
I'm extremely grateful for all the hard work that Scott Spears has done, but I would probably disagree with what has been stated as far as possibly being unfair to expect 2 new commissioners to deal with this. I think it would be a wonderful learning experience for them. So I'm happy with the substitute motion. Thank you.
But would you vote, if the substitute motion goes down, will you vote for the original motion?
No.
Commissioner May, I have another comment.
Commissioner Arnold.
I understand that there is some concern about maybe having some changes in the commission, but I would hate to see this delayed for months and months and months trying to figure that out when there's really nothing onerous in this document. And it is important to put into place the compliance with law and other things that our legal counsel has recommended. So I understand, Commissioner Goldthorpe, that you have some concerns there that are legitimate, but they could be dealt with in another manner that doesn't involve delaying for potentially months and months some legal compliance issues.
Yeah, I wouldn't be in favor of just kicking it down the road, without a date certain to come back and address this. And I do appreciate all the hard work and efforts that the legal department has put into this. I was making notes as Commissioner Hansen was talking, and I don't really see too many things that would really require us to pull for 4 of the exhibits. I thought we were pretty much addressing a lot of those as we went.
So, Madam President?
Yes, Commissioner Hansen.
Yeah, so as I went through, I do have concerns about having further discussion about creating the whole administrative agreement structure. It sounds good, but again, this is the very first time we as a commission have had a conversation about this. The new language that is added, the language regarding newspapers, the language regarding noise mitigation, and the language regarding traffic calming and eligibility of 6% grades, the language regarding light and light pollution and regulation, and the whole language regarding 75 feet. So I don't think it's very onerous. So we move forward with putting in place 9 of the 13 exhibits and just holding 4 for, there were 521 pages to read through, and I read through them, which is my job, because the buck stops here, and I would like further discussion on those 4 at a work session, and then I think they would go through quite smoothly with a little more discussion and rationale. And the one item on noise I would definitely like to see, since there's concurrent jurisdiction regarding light pollution, that I'd like to have the input from the cities. So I think it's a very reasonable approach, rather than hold up all 13 exhibits.
Madam President, I give
Commissioner
up.
Baker.
I absolutely give up. I mean, we have beaten this horse into glue. Let's just call for the question and let's just move on. For God's sake, it's the last meeting of the year. It's the last meeting I'll have to ever endure. So let's just call for the question, okay?
I have a question for
Well, I'll just
legal
walk.
counsel, please.
Well, I'll just walk. I don't care. Let's just move forward. Let's move through this meeting as expeditiously as we can, and that'll be it. We can all then enjoy Christmas. So call for the question.
Can I ask a question
Well,
of our legal counsel first?
Yes,
No, I asked for calling for the question. So I think, isn't that under Robert's Rules of Order, we move forward with the question?
well,
My question for
Mr.
legal counsel is, at a minimum, what would the delay be for these items? Because to schedule work sessions and then redo the ordinance, notice it, all of that, it's going to take a period of several months if we just kick this can down the road. Is that correct?
Madam President, Commissioner Arnold, there would be a delay, but that's something that the next president of the commission can schedule. And it could, after a work session, it would probably take another 30 to 40 days to get all the changes and come back. That would be after a work session would be scheduled on those items. You have two choices, I believe, with the motions before you. The other option would be to adopt it in total and direct staff to come back to the future commission on exhibits A, C, G, and K and provide further work session. And if they desire to have any additional changes to the ordinance, we can do that at that time. You most certainly can change ordinances at the request, or even propose changes at the request of any commissioner. And we're most certainly happy to facilitate the direction that you decide. Thanks.
thank you for that option. Commissioner Hanson, would that be palatable to you? My goal here today is try to get this moving forward in the most expeditious and beneficial manner. So what Mr. Price just suggested, would that be appealing to the motioner?
No, because ordinance is law, and I think it's important before we incorporate some of this language into law that we have a discussion about it, a more in-depth discussion. I really appreciate the work that's been done, but again, this is the first time we've really dived into it as a whole commission. I'd like us to see us go into those details so that we can then feel greater comfort, because we're responsible. The commission is responsible for what's in the ordinance. Rather than hope that it might be changed later on, we just leave it open. It's not going to cause any significant heartburn to have this language placed in, or slightly different language placed in those four sections at a later date. So,
Well, and then we'll have to have the discussion again then too, whether or not the language would pass muster with the new composition of our dais. Commissioner Arnold, would you be amenable to the passage of 9 of the exhibits, holding back the 4 for further discussion, so that we don't just kick this can completely down the road and start all over from scratch?
No, I've already indicated that I'm not in favor of the substitute motion. I think it delays way too many provisions that are important to incorporate compliance.
So then what's the implication here, Mr. Spears, then? It doesn't pass, it goes down. What's the delay then?
I call for the question. I call for the question.
I know,
Vote
Commissioner
for the
Baker.
damn thing. You'll get your 4 votes. I want this to stop. This is ridiculous.
All right.
I call
All
for
right.
the
Mr. Spears, answer, and then we'll go to the decision from Commissioner Baker has requested. All right, for the substitute motion that's before us, call for the decision, and that is to move 9 of the exhibits, come back at the first of the year and discuss further the remaining 4, A, C, G, and K. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Spears. Next item on our agenda, resolution number 2335, amending the ACHD General Administration Policy, the ACHD Personnel Policy Handbook, and the ACHD Internal Policy Manual. This is a request for adoption, and this is not a public hearing. Mr. Spears.
Share this. Yeah, let's go ahead.
Click here.
Yep. And then click share.
I'll do it here, slideshow.
You got this button right there, the slideshow. Yep. No, next one to the right.
Madam President, members of the commission, Scott Spears, Assistant General Counsel, and this is Resolution 2335, amendments to ACHD Internal Policy, Section 1000 and Section 2500, and this is a decision briefing. Amendments to Section 1000 relating to administration of ACHD. There are amendments to include the recognition and establishment of the Development and Technical Services Division and the various departments within the division. There are amendments to provide for the proper characterization of committees established by ACHD is either advisory or administrative for purposes of compliance with the open meetings law. And in Section 2500, relating to personnel policy amendments to provide that in response to a pandemic or other health or safety concern, the district may implement separate policies, and failure to comply with those policies may result in discipline. There are amendments to clarify limitations on employment of relatives, amendments to provide for the supervisor on-call pay, and finally amendments to clarify drug and alcohol policy to include prescription drugs. And this resolution, if adopted, is effective upon adoption. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Spears. Commissioners, any questions or comments for Mr. Spears?
Madam President, I'll defer until the other commissioners have to say.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Hanson, do you have a question?
I do, but
Okay.
I didn't hog the spotlight again. But I just want a little more clarification, Scott, where the concept of advisory versus administrative committees came from. And does that, because we've done all kinds of things like ad hoc committees and subcommittees of advisory committees, are they administrative? And I understand you need to have some clarification of what is or isn't covered by law, but kind of the background of where we got that.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, this is simply a change that comports with existing open meeting law. This isn't an attempt to change any of the existing committees. It is simply just to recognize and give the district the authority to develop two different types of committees for open meeting requirements that is prescribed under the open meeting law.
Okay,
So-
so the statute
Yes,
then amended make distinctions between administrative and advisory committees. Okay,
Yes.
So the actual, okay, that makes sense. I have a question while you're answer. So I can understand the need to address prescription drugs. We're deleting the word illegal drugs. So under the influence of any drugs and alcohol, have we evaluated, and most people come in, whether this is, once you say it's a perfectly legal drug, I just wondered what the legal consequences of removing that word and whether that's consistent with OSHA standards and others that says you can regulate basically what people are, it sort of struck me as why would we take out illegal drugs? Since we already have a bunch of other language with regard to prescription medication and alcohol and those sorts of things. Why remove that word? Or is that something, again, that code is requiring us to do?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, since it involves drugs, I'm going to defer that to Sherry Canals.
Welcome, Sherry.
Thank you, Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, Sherry Canals, Chief Communications Officer. The removal of the word illegal, there was a change in the DOT regulation with reference to prescription drugs and adding those into the list of medications that are included on random drug testing. So from a DOT perspective, they do look at certain prescription drugs as being not allowed under the DOT regulations.
Okay, so this has been initiated by the need to comply with DOT regulations?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thanks. I have one more.
Sherry. Oh,
Legal
for Sherry or Mr. Price? Mr. Price. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, if you send me a document that's 86 pages, I'm going to read it.
I'm glad you did. I think we all had our reading material, so I think we've all looked it over too, and I appreciate your questions. Thank you, Commissioner Hanson.
Right towards the end, it's kind of an obvious question. It's on page 67, or it's section 2509.1.5, which I understand why that language has been put in there. It basically says less employees' employment. Why was that necessary to make that insert and deletion?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, you most certainly can leave it the same. We just thought that from a drafting perspective that it was clear that way. I think the provision or the sentence that was struck out does exactly the same thing. So it was really just trying to be clear.
So, well, except that currently we have an employment contract that's going to go for a couple of years, and then not that the stricken out language will still be stricken out. So I would suggest we leave it as is, because that we're not going to come back and amend the policy when a specific contract ends.
No, that's fine. The whole point is that if there's a written employment agreement, that the director's not entitled to the grievance procedure that's in policy. So with that, we're happy with that change. That's fine.
Right, I think, but when that contract ends, then that sentence would still be stricken, so it should be, because that's the only employee that's at will for them. So I would suggest that we not make the change in 2509.1.5. Otherwise, I'd be fine with the amendments.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Any other questions or comments, commissioners? All right, seeing none. Ms. Spencer, was there anybody that wanted to comment on this?
There is nobody signed up.
All right, thank you very much. All right, commissioners, you have this item before you.
Madam President, I would make a motion to approve the amendment to the personnel policies with the exception of not making the change in section 2509.1.5.
I'll second that.
Madam President, we need a motion to adopt the resolution 2335.
Okay, I make the motion to adopt the resolution 2335.
With the edit that you described earlier.
With the edit I just described.
Yes.
Want me to restate?
No,
Go ahead and read. No, you were good? They got it? Okay, they got it. Commissioner Goldthorpe, did you second? All right, we've got a motion and a second.
Madam President,
Commissioner
What's the
Baker.
edit? What's the edit?
Mr. Spears, could you please state the edit?
The edit is
2509.15, was it?
What does it
Yeah,
say?
he'll read it for you.
Okay.
The edit is to not delete the last paragraph of 2509.15, which states the director may not use the grievance process since the director's employment is governed by the Idaho Code Section 40-618. And so it's to keep that language as it is, and then to not insert the new language that was proposed. And the new language that was proposed stated full-time or exempt employees may use the grievance procedure unless an employee's employment is governed by the terms of a written employment contract. So that's the language that was proposed. The motion is to not insert that and to keep the last sentence.
And what's the last sentence again?
Again, the last sentence says the director may not use the grievance process since the director's employment is governed by Idaho Code Section 40-618.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner May,
Commissioner Arnold?
I'd like to make a substitute motion that we adopt resolution number 2335 as written and as proposed by staff.
Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second that.
All right, we have a substitute motion before us. Any discussion? All right, we'll call for the decision. All in favor of the substitute motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No?
Okay. Motion passes. Consistent with staff recommendation. All right. Next item, resolution number 2321, amending the ACHD fee schedules. And this is a request for adoption.
This is a resolution.
This is a resolution. Mr. Enselman.
Mm.
Thank you, Mr. Spears.
Thank you.
Madam President, Commissioners, for the record, Gary Enselman, Development Technical Services. This is a decision briefing for Resolution 2321. The proposed adjustments to our fee schedule removes fees from the ACHG policy manual, which was just done with the adoption of Ordinance 247. It updates the fees and revises them for long-term encroachments, as we discussed previously, and the slight increase to permit fee, application fees for special event permits and fiber optic facilities permits. The revision updates to the fee schedule are consistent with the policy changes adopted with Ordinance 247, and staff recommends the Commission adopt Resolution 2321 as presented. I'd stand for any questions you may have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Enselman. Commissioners, any questions or comments, please, for Mr. Enselman? All right, hearing none. Commissioners, you have this before you. Is there a motion?
Commissioner May.
Commissioner Arnold.
I move that we adopt resolution number 2321 as presented and recommended by staff.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion with a second. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. Motion carries. All right, our next item on the regular agenda, interagency license agreement for Table Rock Road Gate. And who will be, is Mr. Price?
Let me just do a little pre. Thank you, Madam President, Commissioners. For the record, Steve Price, General Counsel. We've been working literally with the city and the Idaho Historical Society and the property owners in the area regarding the installation of a gate on Table Rock Road because of some of the activities that have occurred there. And I believe not too long ago, there was a group of people that came to the commission and Mr. Bates provided a presentation. We informed you that this was going to be a next step in that process. And in doing that, we have negotiated, and Gary's going to get into the approval of the design of the location and the actual design of the gate and supporting facilities. I've negotiated the interagency license agreement with the City of Boise. Why this was moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda is there's a dispute between the City of Boise and ACHD regarding one term of the license agreement, and that is a termination provision. I've been holding steady on that ACHD has to retain the right to terminate the license agreement at any time with advance notice. The reason is that I don't feel comfortable negotiating on behalf of the district to negotiate away the commission's jurisdiction over the rights of way. Typically, a license agreement is a revocable document by law. It can be revoked by the licensor at will. And so the message to the city was they're not comfortable with that provision, and in response to that, I indicated that I bring it to the commission because it is not within staff's authority to be agreeing to the removal of exclusive jurisdiction of the highway district. That is, as Commissioner Hansen points out, that is where the buck stops with you folks on that. So in any event, that's why that's before you. That is the single issue. And Gary will provide a briefing on that issue.
All right, thank you, Mr. Price.
Well, Steve's kind of stole my thunder there. That's about all I was going to say. So, Commissioners, as Steve said, that he did negotiate the agreement. As you know, the City of Boise adopted a resolution declaring illegal nighttime activities in that area as an ongoing threat to public safety and welfare. They have proposed a gate to be installed in the area of Alta Via, with the gate going down automatically between the hours of 9 p.m. and 8 a.m. to prevent unauthorized access. The language is in the third bullet there, the termination without cause, that the city has objected to. It is a standard condition in all of our license agreements. Only this one provides 120 days notice. Normally it's 30 days in our standard license agreements. So moving forward today, the Commission may approve the license agreement as drafted, direct staff to remove the language from Section 2B, or provide other direction. And staff does recommend the Commission approve the interagency license agreement for the Table Rock Road gate, and including the design plans, which are attached as Exhibit B to your to the license agreement in your packet. And I would stand for any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Baker.
Yes, Gary or Steve, wouldn't it make more sense to say dawn to dusk? Because, 8 o'clock in the morning during the summer, we've already had sun for, 2 hours, and in the evening in the summer it goes to 9:30. So, and then during the winter time, I don't think you'd want anybody up there after, say, 6 o'clock because it's dark. So wouldn't it make more sense to say dawn to dusk? And that way it changes depending on the time of year.
Madam President, Commissioner Baker, that language is not in the license agreement. That's from the city's resolution. I was just providing you the information that they have proposed. And under the license, we were allowing them the flexibility to determine that time frame.
I think from a safety standpoint, those are good points that Commissioner Baker is addressing, so perhaps we could bring this up with the city. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Commissioner Baker.
No, that's fine. Just trying to figure out exactly. So, but we're having a dispute, right? So what are we asked to do here today? I'm trying to figure this out. So we want to approve a license agreement. They don't want to, right? Is that where we're at?
Madam President, Commissioner Baker, the city wants the license agreement. They object to the language in section 2B, the termination without cause language.
Language in other agreements, he stated, is 30 days. This one states 120 days. I think that was another difference, correct, Mr. Enselman?
Yes, Madam President and Commissioner Baker, if I can, their concern is that ACHD, after they install the gate, that we'll just give them a 120-day notice and tell them to get rid of it. And I doubt that I can't imagine that ever happening. We include this language in most license agreements because we have to retain exclusive jurisdiction over our roads, and we have to have the ability to, if we have an encroachment such as a gate, we have to have the authority to be able to manage the right-of-way at our desires. It's typical in license agreements. A license is revocable. They want something that limits our jurisdiction so that we can only have it removed in the event we're going to have a construction project or we have other traffic needs or road operation needs. So it really is just determining our ability whether we can terminate without cause with a 120-day notice or whether it would be restricted to having to have the purpose of terminating related to traffic and road operation needs. Again, staff doesn't feel comfortable in negotiating away your exclusive jurisdiction. You can agree to it, and that's fine, but that's for your decision, not for staff.
So there's nothing in the license agreement that talks about when the gate shall be closed, right?
No. This simply allows the city to install the gate, and it's in accordance with the design that Gary and his team have approved.
Well, should we go ahead and approve this agreement, I think we ought to have a further discussion with them over the time frame, because realistically, they're going to let somebody go in at 9 o'clock on a winter evening. It's pitch dark for 4 hours. I mean, that whole sort of obviates the whole need for keeping people off of that road after dark.
Yes, Madam President, we most certainly, and if you want to include in a motion to whatever decision you make, direct staff to communicate that with the City of Boise, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense from a safety perspective. Any other comments or questions, commissioners?
Madam President, I assume we're going to hear from
Hansen. I was just going to ask that question as soon as I made sure everybody had asked all their questions. Okay. All right. Ms. Spencer, is there someone from the city that would like to comment?
I did not have anybody signed up, but I know Mr. Pipemeyer was on at the beginning of the meeting, but
Meyer.
Madam President, this is Zach.
Oh, hello, Zach. Did you want to ask a question or have a comment?
Sure. Thank you, Madam President, Commissioners. For the record, Zach Pietmeyer, Transportation Planner with the City of Boise. I just wanted to respond to Commissioner Baker's comments. Yes, the city has amended the resolution. It was actually amended when it was adopted October 2019 to change the time of closure from 9 p.m. to sunset, and then opening from 8 a.m., changing that to sunrise. So it will be closed from sunset to sunrise, which, as you pointed out, would change seasonally.
Perfect.
Did you have a question specific for the city, Commissioner Hanson? Mr. Hanson, sorry.
It seems to me if this is a negotiating issue between the city and ACHD, I'd like to hear, because this was on the agenda for the city to vote on yesterday, and it was moved off of the agenda, I believe. So it bothers me that after all the hard work that has gone into this, enormous amount of work by you, Zach, by Mr. Bates, by the Historical Society, there's an enormous amount of work. We had a very long work session. As those commissioners who were on that work session remember, we had a good discussion about this. Why wasn't this resolved, identified and resolved back in October when these negotiations were going on? And it bothers me that the city has nothing to say to this, and it pulled it off the agenda yesterday. So I need to know what's going on. Why wasn't this an issue of negotiation resolved long before it's gotten in front of this dais?
Thank you. Mr. Pietmeyer, can you expand on that, please?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, it boils down to a timing issue. When the new item or the new language was added, it was after the deadline by which the city could have correctly posted into our agenda for yesterday. So the version of the agreement we had for the mayor and council's review in the agenda yesterday did not include that language. So we had to pull it from the agenda, and our legal staff and risk and safety staff was still considering it at the time. So it was not feasible for us to add it to the agenda in time for yesterday's noon meeting.
And Madam President, if I can follow up.
Yes, please, Mr. Price.
With Zach is that we had exchanged a draft agreement, I believe back in August and September. I looked at that briefly, but told Zach that I didn't want to, that we needed to have the full plans for us to be able to consider all the terms and conditions. I didn't notice it at the time on the termination provision. So when I went through it with greater detail, once the plans were approved, which was, by the way, just last week, as a final approval of the license agreement, I noticed it was missing. Again, this is simply very basic ACHD license agreement policy. Again, staff doesn't feel comfortable negotiating away the exclusive jurisdiction and restraining your authority over the public rights of way. I believe the commission can do that, and if you desire to do that, that's within your purview. I don't think there was anything sinister or foul play going on. It was really just a timing issue that Zach had pointed out. And that is why this was pulled at the last minute.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Any further comments or questions?
Well, Madam President,
I have one.
Hold on just a moment.
Commissioner Hanson.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hanson.
I was just going to say, in contract negotiations, when there's a material clause, one side can say this is immaterial, this is standard operating business, another side says, no, this is material to us. It should be discussed. I'm going to say it's anybody's fault, but given the amount of work that's gone into this, and I also know that the cities have to put in resources in order to make sure that there's enforcement. We aren't enforcers. That's the whole crux of this issue, is that ACHD just simply owns the right-of-way. we cannot enforce who uses the right-of-way. So we have to go through this whole process. So the city's invested a lot, and the property owners have invested a lot in getting this issue resolved. So it really does bother me that this final sticking point might delay its implementation. And I think it's just fine if we come up with, we just take the word out and just say, you know, as long as we have cause, the ACHD is not going to regulate that, the use of that road once it's closed. And it just seems to me adds uncertainty if the city's going to invest a lot of resources and those private parties are going to invest a lot of resources into a certain status quo. ACHD, for some other reason, can just simply pull the rug out without saying why. And we ought to be able, at least in this case, say why. And I've seen for cause clauses put in all kinds of contracts. So I think that we just move forward and let this be a lesson. We really have all clauses in these contracts are material and should be exchanged early enough in the process. My heart goes out to those poor property owners who have been frustrated at the amount of bureaucracy it's taken between these two agencies to get this issue to a resolution.
I would agree with that, and I would hate to see it get sidelined over a sticking point. The city of Boise signed that resolution in October of 2019. And as you stated, we've already had meetings with the invested parties. So, Mr. Price?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please, Commissioner Arnold.
I would have to agree with Mr. Price that it is very appropriate for us to have a termination provision in the license agreement. And I would point out that this should not have been a surprise to their legal counsel. As Mr. Price has pointed out, it is a standard provision in license agreements. Mm-hmm. And most lawyers would expect that it be there. I mean, I guess there are some that might not be educated with regard to license law, but most attorneys I know do understand it. So that's not a surprise. It's not an unusual provision. I doubt that you could find an instance where we don't have a termination provision. I can't think of a license agreement that we've signed in 16 years that did not have a provision in it for termination, just because that's a standard in the industry.
Yeah, we retain that control. That's what Mr. Price stated. Thank you, Commissioner Arnold. Any other comments or questions? Zach, thank you very much. All right, hearing none, Commissioners, you have this before you. Is there a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the license agreement for this gate as presented by staff.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion with a second. Any further discussion?
Madam President, I would make a motion that we approve the license agreement and change the word in subsection 2B from without to with. One word change. And so I would ask that that change take place.
All right, we have a substitute motion. Is there a second? All right, hearing no second, substitute motion dies for failure of obtaining a second. So we're back to the original motion. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, I will call for the decision. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Opposed? Is there an opposed? Was that?
It is
No,
unanimous decision.
Commissioner Hanson voted no.
I voted aye.
You voted, this was the original motion.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you understood it was not your substitute motion. All right, thank you. All right, that takes us to public communications. Is there anyone here to address the commission?
Director Wong would like to address the commission.
Director Wong.
Commissioners, thank you for giving me just a second opportunity to do a couple things. First off, to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And again, to thank you all for all that you've done in support of the district and the great discussions, sometimes lengthy discussions, that you've had on some very difficult and tough issues that have impacts far beyond the day that you all discuss that. So with that, since you are virtual at stuff, we would like to give you the following Christmas present from the staff. Stacy?
Okay, we're gonna hope for the best here.
Very nice, thank you.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you very much. Long meeting, a lot of good discussion today. We always thank staff for all their dedication and their hard work, but I want to thank each and every one of the commissioners. As you said, Commissioner Hanson, it's our job, it's our homework. Today was a kind of a protracted meeting, but I do appreciate all the effort. I don't think anyone, unless they sit in these seats, know just exactly what it entails. And I appreciate and respect all of you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful holiday with your family. And I look forward to seeing everybody back in January. So Merry Christmas. Thanks so much for all that you do.
Merry
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Goodbye.
Merry Christmas. Goodbye, Sarah.
Always.